There we go. I love it when people understand my weird mental block about remembering to record. Um, yeah, please do, make sure you keep up with the team meetings and everything. Um, I'd like to congratulate you all as far as keeping up with the sprints. I think this is the most tightly packed group being on time with the sprints that we've seen so far in the accelerator. So great job. Really appreciate that. Makes my life a lot easier too. Um, Vasant, thank you for volunteering. I don't see anyone volunteering to go first to pitch though,
Okay.
unless I missed something. Um, so would love to have one or two more people. Um, but while we're doing that, so we have five mentors tonight, although I think we're still waiting on one of our mentors. Yeah. So hopefully Gaurav will be able to join soon. But I think just one of our mentors is someone you haven't seen before. So Eric, I think this is your first time seeing this cohort. If you don't mind sharing just a quick background about yourself.
Sure, yeah, I'm excited to be here, particularly on this night, on the product management and product focus night here with all of you, because most of my background, at least the stuff I've been most passionate about, has been in product management. Currently, I'm working as an independent consultant, helping customers with product management needs, and particularly around AI these days. Before that, I worked for a startup in creating an enterprise mobility product that didn't exist in the market prior to that. And a lot of my career has been in management consulting and technology consulting. So whether that's software development or new product development and some technical project management, that's been the focus of my career and leading teams in those spaces.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Eric. Great to have you. Really appreciate you joining, and thanks again to all our mentors for coming back. Um, all right, fantastic. Basant, can I turn to you for a
Yeah.
practice pitch? And then I would love to get one more person, and we are coming up on close, so I will pick someone at random if I don't get a volunteer. So you all have been warned. Um, okay, Basant, I'm gonna go on mute and I'll start the timer, 3 minutes. I'll start it as soon as you start talking. Oh, wait, you know what? I'm sorry. See, foggy brain. Mentors. I need to go through the criteria here real quick. So Vasant is going to do a 3 minute pitch. And then what I'm going to do after he finishes is I'll just call on each of you in turn and ask you to share a couple minutes of feedback on the pitch. And so what I'm going to ask you to do is also give Vasant a score on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the best, 1 being the worst. Encourage some moderately tough grading here. And the thing about that is no threes are allowed. So it has to be a 1, a 2, a 4, or a 5. And mentors, I'm also going to DM you on Zoom a quick note with a link to enter that score online as well, and that's just part of the founder's curriculum. So if you don't mind just dropping that in, anytime tonight is fine. If you don't want to do it immediately, after the pitch, that's fine. So hopefully that's all clear. Um, DM me on Zoom if there's any issue with that. Okay, sorry about that, Basant. I'll get my act together here. I'll turn it over to you.
Right. And let me share my screen. Uh, so hi, good evening. My name is Vasant Rahul. I'm kind of founder for and CEO for Relgo Networks Private Limited. Typically, every business are trapped with the disconnected apps and manual coordination with their operations. So they limit the growth for their operations. Relgo's AI graph native automation simplify operations and accelerate the growth by providing integrated business solution for their operations. So the currently with the fragmented solutions, the businesses are losing. Actually, the estimated loss from various studies is around 100 billion because of this disconnected solutions. So the Relgo provides integrated solutions to fill in that gap. So the Relgo solutions, if I take a use case for the Relgo solutions, one of the customer who is one of the customer name is Interport Logistics. They're kind of customs clearance company. Typically, they have nearly 3,500 customers where for them, once they kind of do the shipments and then for completing their billing cycle, it used to take like half of the staff to do 15 days to generate the bill of lading, get the approvals, and then generate the pro forma invoice, get the approvals, and then get the payment. So
So by integrating with their accounting system, with the customers, and then providing automated clearance, then they were able to reduce the time to zero, and then grow the customer base to 10,000 within a month. So that's kind of improvisation that we are seeing in the market. And then if you see actually the Relgo's AI solution, the product, once the customer is implemented, it kind of gives this kind of a dashboard where you will have a natural language interface to basically generate invoice for Acme and that's an install team. So this is kind of basically enables any of the operations to simplify for each of the roles. And underneath, other operations are automatically kind of performed and then provided opportunity to commit that operation. Similarly, you can change that process graphs for different domains and then get different dashboards. Then this shows actually our website where you have a workspace which is kind of a client, and then builder is actually the process graph builder, which will enable for switch between the operations. Then community is kind of a business community where it will enable different models further, like kind of build the community for these operations. And generated functional process graph looks like this. It's just a kind of a draft, but actually the builder will build this kind of a graphs. So the revenue models that we see, that we are going with a solution builder usage cost per hour of using that, as our another model is actually have a monthly subscription for the solution. These are kind of knowledge workers who build the solutions. The second is actually the Relgo workspace, where the users we are going by usage a quarter for an hour, or $25 per month for the user solutions. Typically, we are looking at 1 million revenue in 18 months, estimated like a 200 customers that will be able to meet that 1 million revenue. And
Okay, I'm gonna
currently,
I'll
yeah,
stop you there, Vasant, because you're about 20 seconds over time. I just want to let you finish up that slide.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, this is the
so
last slide.
oh, okay, perfect. Yeah, so just if you take about 30 seconds off total, I think you'll be right there. Although we're going to
Yeah,
5 minutes in a moment anyway, so you'll be okay.
yeah. Yeah. So
Um,
I'm was something looking doing the both like a tech side, and then Paris has been doing the business development and then building the partners and communities.
okay. Great. So let's turn to for feedback. Dominique, can we start with you?
Sure. Thank you, Vasant, for presenting. So I have a few things that I jotted down as you were presenting. Curious why. So it's great that you have the value associated, with the risk, $100 billion estimated loss. But it's not clear why the graph aspect is valuable for this. At least it didn't come clear to me. Um, and just a smaller thing in terms of presenting the use case, I think a diagram would help us visualize, especially you're going through that use case a bit quickly. So having a visual there would be helpful for your audience. Um, Also, who is this geared for? Is this primarily for operations teams, or is it more designed to be like cross-functional? Just kind of curious what departments would be involved in this. And lastly, I'm curious about the revenue model in terms of the subscription and how you came across those numbers. So that's my feedback. I would say right now a 2, because there's still some details to maybe get a bit clearer about.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dominique.
Yeah.
Jagdish, can we go to you next?
Sure. So I think one of the issues that I had was trying to understand, what does your solution actually do? Is it for a specific vertical? At one point, I was assuming that it's a point solution or a solution for the customs clearing space. So I think overall the clarity wasn't there as to, and it was clear what problem you're solving, but the clarity wasn't there as to whether is it an accounting or an operations solution or a customer service solution, or is it a generic solution? That didn't come across very clearly. As far as the revenue, the pricing is concerned, I kind of felt that it seems still undecided whether you were going to go with a per hour or per user pricing model, it didn't leap off the page. So I know it's challenging to tell your story and everything that you said in 3 minutes, but if you try to say less, that might actually turn into more clarity than less clarity. So I would suggest if you can reduce the things that you're trying to get across in the time that's available to you, you might actually end up communicating the solution and its value even better.
Yeah, thank you.
In terms of scoring, I think it is at a 2 right now.
Thanks, Jagdish. Lingen, can we go to you next?
Yeah. Hey, Vasant. So nice presentation, and also just looking at the product, it looked mature. You're like into kind of really having it being used by folks. I had a few things I think, like others had mentioned, you want to be careful about what you are saying in that the time usage of the time. Like a lot of folks at this point like may not need to know your background or like the intro about the company. Could use more in defining the problem. I missed, even though I listened to this like a couple of times, I still kind of struggled a little bit on understanding the problem versus the solution. I think you talked a lot about the solution more than the problem. So something for you to keep that in mind. I think it was great. Like on that slide where you talked about that example, there was some information that was redundant for the purpose, but the killer piece that I got was like, oh, something went from 15 days to 0. That just really made the needle move. So you might want to kind of look at, in this case, not necessarily give the full story, but kind of the punchline of this was the impact. And then also, it was hard to, in the context of today's discussion, it was hard for me to know what is that differentiating or the killer feature that you are giving to solve this problem. I think Dominic mentioned about, they talked about graph and all that, but I didn't really get that piece. So some clarity there. So overall, lots of good pieces, but I would give it a 2 for, at this point, you want to start to like really tighten it down.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lingen. Let's see. Eric, can we go to you?
Sure. Hi, Vasant. I love the case study mentioned. That was the best part for me of the presentation. I mean, I didn't know, because I haven't met you yet, where you are in your startup's life cycle, but it looks like, oh, boom, you've got a real live paying customer, which is awesome. And I love the metrics, the 100,000 saved plus time saved. That's great. I didn't get a feel for that was representative of, is that your only customer? Do you have other ones? Was this like the best case study? Something like that, just like an extra sentence there in a pitch would give me that context of how this customer is like others you have, or something like that. But I still really did like that slide. A couple things I struggled with is a little bit like how you do it. I saw some of the screens a little bit, but in trying to understand what you do and how you do it, how you bring that value, it just wasn't that clear to me. So I get part of what you're doing, but with the process pieces and tying them together and integrating them, but it was just a bit fuzzy for me. Maybe there's a way to articulate that more concisely. I didn't hear competitive differentiation. So in this marketplace, how are you different than either your competitors, or if you're the only one in this space, what's going to keep you ahead of potential competitors in this space? Just from a positioning standpoint, I'd love to hear that. On the revenue model, if I understood you clearly, it looked like you had a couple of different products, the solution builder and the workspace, and those are both priced differently. And then it looked like you had options per hour and per month within that. Not exactly clear to me why you're doing that. So just think about that. So when a customer sees that, how are they supposed to be thinking that they're going to pay? That might be a question for you starting up is like, how did you get those numbers, right? Do you have any data yet on customer willingness to pay? You've got, clearly, it sounds like you have at least one customer, but what other data do you have about customers' willingness to pay either the per hour or the per monthly price? And then finally, on that revenue model slide, I think you had a first $1 million revenue in 18 months. Again, it wasn't clear, is that your target or what you've already achieved? I'm assuming it's a target, but if it's a target, how are you going to get there? I see combining one-time hours, or I think you had combining one-time orders and long-term subscriptions. But what is your approach to customer acquisition? Is this a product growth, a product led? Is this sales led? Is this partner led? How are you acquiring those customers? Were some questions I had. So because of those gaps, I think I'd probably also go with a 2 for right now.
Thank you.
Thank you,
That was a
Eric.
great.
It's really comprehensive. Gaurav, I saw you join, but I think you joined partway through Basant's pitch, and I know you mentioned being on your phone. So do you have any feedback you'd like to share, or should we just move to the next pitch?
We'll move to the next page.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Gaurav. All right, perfect. Then, Carrie, I think you're up next.
Do I get a special accommodation since I pulled my back?
Carrie is injured. But actually, more importantly for the current context, just mentors, just so you know, Carrie is actually in our traditional business track, and decided to join this session for Venture Scale as well. So just important thing to note, she's not building a software product, it's a consumer physical goods product. And she will not be pitching for venture capital funding. This is more of a general pitch to practice business narrative. So just to kind of set feedback accordingly, just so you know that.
I'm actually pitching to mentors.
Brilliant.
That is my
Like to recruit advisors, you mean?
Yes. Any help, honestly, any
All right,
any
sounds
help.
good. That's what we'll call it. Well, whenever you're ready, if you want to go ahead and share your screen, Carrie, and I will start the timer as soon as you're ready to go.
Okay. Oh, I always forget it's 2 things. Is it?
Looks good.
Okay, hold on, but now I gotta find my notes. Sorry. Okay.
You're good.
Are you ready, Levi?
I'm ready.
Okay. This is my dog, Rudy. After she had cancer surgery, I struggled to find a way to let her eat and drink comfortably while we're in the cone of shame. And if you've ever had a dog in the cone, you know that dinner time is just like bumper cars. There's food flying everywhere and water going all over the place. Fun times. So it's messy. There's not a lot of accessibility. There's just generic designs. Actually, one pet parent who's a vet said that she used telephone books and shoe boxes to solve the problem. So this is a $30 billion pet supplies market, but recovery is still underserved. And feeding solutions, if a pet is wearing the cone of shame, they just don't exist. There was one quasi-competitor, but their stand wasn't weighted, and it ceased operation in August 2022. So the solution I came up with, I went to Home Depot in Soto, and I built the first prototype. You see Rudy here eating out of it. Wasn't quite right. The second prototype is in the other picture. It's angled, elevated, and weighted, because again, if you've had a pet in the cone, they try to hit everything with the cone. And yeah, that is the product. This is me. My background is risk management, so risk to Rudy Co. I spent time in compliance, risk management, and if anyone is fit to do quality assurance when it comes to manufacturing, it would be an auditor like me. So my ask today is, my traction so far, I've done the 2 prototypes that you've seen. I'm working on the 3rd one. Rudy used the 2nd prototype until she passed away in January 2020. I'm looking for anyone to do pet parent interviews in the Accelerator, and I'm having lots of fun in the Accelerator. So my ask today is if anyone has any recommendations for industrial designers, introductions to any inventors of any physical products, you can share my Calendly link with anybody to set up a pet parent research call, and any introductions for partnering with rescue organizations. And that's it.
Great. Thank you, Carrie. That came in at 2.5 minutes on the dot, so you have a little bit of time to play with. Let's see, for feedback, Eric, could we start with your thoughts? And I know mentors, we're a little outside of, you know, the area of expertise here, so if it's a little shorter, that's totally fine.
Sure. Yeah. Interesting product. And I don't have a pet, but I have in the past, and I see those cones of shame around, and I've always wondered how to solve that. So, how do they do that? So it's an interesting product. Some questions for you, as you're pitching this and looking. I know you're not necessarily seeking funding, but just thinking about this as a sustainable business, do you have ideas on what the cost to build is going to be? I know you're still at the prototype stage, but roughly what you think that cost is, either, you know, even marginally right now versus scaling in the future. What do you think you'll price that at? I saw on the one slide, it sounded like, unfortunately, Rudy passed, and I didn't quite understand that. Like, that you were also mentioning that was sort of at the timing of the V2 prototype, I think, but it wasn't clear to me what the significance of that was. So I'm sorry to hear that Rudy passed, but I didn't get the tie of that to the prototype. So that was a little bit confusing for me. I get if it helps to have a pet to use that with. So my question would be, do you have other pets of friends or other strategies for evaluating that? Where are you at kind of in your evaluation of whether that is the product, the design? Where are you at the confidence level in terms of that is the design? Would be a question I would have for you. Let's see. I think that's, oh, you mentioned that there was another competitor. So love to hearing that you've done some research on competitive analysis and they're no longer in the business, didn't have the weighted piece. Do you have any idea why it didn't work out for them? Right? Clearly it didn't seem to. They don't seem to be in the business anymore. So where is that for you from a risk management perspective? What is that you've learned from that or could learn from that? Those would be all things that I think would be interesting and really also help you from a competitive position, right, stage. So here's what they did. I get that they didn't have the weighted thing, but what else do you have that they weren't doing? Would be another question I'd have. So yeah, very different product. I'm not used to evaluating, so interesting to hear and see. I think I'm going to go with a 2 just because I know these are pitches, but I'm just was trying to see where you were going and didn't quite get there.
Thanks, Eric. Great feedback. I think what I'm going to do with this one, mentors, because we just had some late volunteers and I want to try and get some more hot seats in since we're getting towards the end of the program. So I'm actually just going to do 2 more mentors. I'm thinking Lingen and Dominique, and then kind of shuffle it that way for the remaining pitches. But if I don't call on you and you have something you want to contribute as feedback, please do feel free to jump in, and please also feel free to leave feedback at that link, even if you don't have verbal feedback. So Lingen, can I go to you next? And then
Yeah, hey,
Dominique,
Gary.
and then we'll go to Vinay.
Yeah, hey, Gary. So I really love the way you started the page. I think it was very clear to understand the problem. You were relating to that problem. And Eric covered a lot of the feedback that I'm not going to repeat that. I think the main thing that I would add to it is I didn't get the depth of the cost to manufacture and how you would distribute, because the key thing here would be kind of getting it out to customers. And are you going to sell it on Amazon? Are you going to sell it through like the pet store? And so that's something I would have liked to see, because that's critical in this case. And then also like kind of what Eric was leading to is like, why hasn't somebody done it? And once you put like, are you going to have a patent? Like, how will you protect this idea and make sure that nobody can? So what is unique about it? So I think that I would give it a 2 for those reasons, but really loved how you kicked off. That kind of got my attention. So good job.
Thanks, Lincoln. Let's see. Dominique, could we wrap up with you?
Yeah, so mine's pretty short. Good job, Carrie. I would say again, with Lincoln said, great intro. It, kind of grabs you in the feels, seeing, a dog and all that. So that was great. One thing to think about as you're doing the prototyping is how you're measuring across prototypes and, what kind of metrics you're using to keep track, especially when you're having those conversations with pet parents and all of that and gathering feedback. I would just recommend you go in with a structure and planning, what's V1 versus V2 versus V3, what's the need for going above and beyond, and that current version. That's all of the feedback I have.
Thank you, Dominique.
Thank
Great job,
all of
Carrie.
y'all.
Thank you. All right. Vinay, do you want to take us away with the next pitch?
Yeah, for sure. Can anyone hear me okay?
I can hear you. I don't. Oh, okay.
Perfect.
Slides. All right. I see your slides. Looks great. That's a cool
All
photo.
right.
Nice.
Yeah, thanks so much. All right. So, hi everyone. My name is Vinay, and I am the co-founder at Satya, where our vision is to make planning a South Asian wedding 100 times easier. So, planning a South Asian wedding in North America is one of the most overwhelming and complicated journeys a couple can face. In short, it's exciting, it's beautiful, but it sucks to plan a lot. It can take over a year, cost between $100,000 to $300,000 or more, have tons of guests, require thousands of decisions. There's lots of cultural complexities to keep in mind, and there's a lot of endless vendor research. So in short, it feels like a second full-time job that you're not even getting paid for. So our solution is to kind of combine the core elements that couples need to plan their wedding, which are cultural guides, smart planning tools, and curated vendors, all while honoring traditions to create a one-stop shop where wedding planning can take moments and not months. We've had some pretty good traction over the last year. We've had 5,000 annual website traffic visits, 2,500 annual users, over 1,300 Instagram followers in 4 months, over 50 of our tools downloaded, and over 10 vendors who've expressed interest in joining the Satya vendor network. So for our business model, initially, we're keeping it pretty simple. We're looking at vendor marketplace subscriptions. We're looking at offering a couple of different tiers at an average of $30 a month. If we project acquiring 1,000 vendors in the first year, we project to have about $360,000 of revenue. This is just the kind of beginning. From there, we're looking at future development as well to kind of continue to grow the business. Really quick here, I'll talk about the market just really quickly. It's growing in terms of the South Asian market population. There's 6.5 million in the US, 2.3 million in Canada. And what I did is I made a 1%, an assumption about a 1% marriage rate of those. And so I'm really kind of focused on the small circle there at the bottom of targeting 650 weddings within the first year, which is a 1% rate. We do have some competitors on the board, and the way that I've assessed them is looking at how culturally inclusive they are and how much of a one-stop shop they are. So as you can kind of see here, we've got some folks who are more on the one-stop shop, but less culturally inclusive, and vice versa. Some of you may be wondering, why not get a wedding planner? Well, when people are buying a house, they still look to a real estate agent to help them out, and it's something that we're really hoping to kind of bring into this space a little bit more of having more of a one-stop shop. Our go-to-market here, we're building up a two-sided marketplace of couples and vendors with strategies to kind of increase both simultaneously. Won't get too much into detail there. And really, the team right now is between my wife and I just wanted to kind of mention and call out that we had 3 weddings all to each other. They were beautiful, but really, really hard to plan. Last just slide here, looking for ongoing coaching support from mentors and advisors and help with identifying a co-founder. That's it. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Vinay. You're about 15 seconds over, but not a big deal. Great job. Gaurav, I saw you rejoined. Were you able to catch all of that? Would it be okay if we start with you for feedback?
Yes, I could. Yes.
Wonderful.
Being late, the traffic
No,
was
no worries. Thank you.
awesome. Hey, this was great, Vinay. Great job. Very crisp pitch. I could follow along with you along with your narrative, so which was great. Couple of thoughts. One is when you started, I for a moment thought I did not realize it was a marketplace idea. Maybe I missed it.
Yeah.
So whenever you're doing a marketplace, kind of start with that concept because your first slide did not say that, I'm actually being a marketplace, enabling the demand and the supply meeting together. Okay. And all your pain points were reflected from the demand side, which is great. You need to have that. That's a must have. If there's anything which can resonate from the supply side as well, that will be
Hmm.
the cherry on top because
Okay.
ultimately you need both. Otherwise, your marketplace won't work. So that's that. You mentioned there are 650 wedding a year, if I remember it correctly.
Yeah, that's 1% kind of just
Okay.
assuming the marriage rate.
So just out of curiosity, that might raise a question if you're raising a kind of venture capital, which is how does that translate into the revenue? Like it's 650. So yeah. So in the business model, at least you may want to work out those details. What does the dollar number look like corresponding to that? And you mentioned that marketplace, you are working on both the sides. Like from my experience, usually marketplace, you solidify your supply side really good so that the customer, basically you follow the money lead. Where is the money flowing from? So you want to start with the person who's getting paid first. So as long if you have good supply, then your demand will also come along with that. So that's that. And then just one minor suggestion is when you started, it sounded like you have experienced all these pain points. You had awesome, great pain points. And towards the end, you mentioned that we got married, and this was such a pain for us. I would love for you to start with that. Hey, this is my
Okay.
own journey. I came across all this problem, and that's the reason I started to solve this problem. That will make your story more credible. But
Got it.
for all these reasons, there is a good mix of greats in this, and then there are some opportunities. So I'll give you a two.
Thanks, Gaurav.
Awesome. Thank you, Gaurav. Jagdish, can we go to you next?
Sure. Great pitch, Vinay. It was very, very clear, very well organized. And like Gaurav said, I think you will benefit from changing the sequence of how you present the solution. So I'm that guy who has that second full-time job right now because my daughter is getting married next year. And it is such a painful process to get all the pieces to line up together. So there is a real need. Unfortunately, as you know, companies like the Knot and Midjoy and so on, they also operate on the same model, meaning that the vendor pays them and not the couple. And for couples, it's completely free. The website is free. The RSVPs are free. I'm assuming that you're offering all of that support to brides and grooms.
Yeah, we're kind of basically we're trying to benchmark the Knot and Zola and just become a South Asian version of them. Yeah.
Those solutions they offer a whole bunch of features for the bride and groom, including the ability to set up various events. South Asian weddings, some of you may not know, they're very complex, lengthy, multi-day affairs. So there's more than just one wedding. There's plenty of ceremonies to the run up and so on. So I think having those features is a part of your product because also like Gaurav said, the demand side, you have to satisfy the demand side in order to get the supply side. I mean, both the wheels have to turn equally well. So that's another piece of feedback. So there's unfortunately very little or no revenue opportunity from brides and grooms. The other thing I would add here is that yes, the US and Canada market is pretty large, but so is the Indian market. So in India, I think the amount of traction that you will get from this would be far, far greater than the North American market because I'm attending another wedding in December this year in India, and I was talking, is my cousin's daughter, and they have the exact same problems that are on this side of the world because the complexities are the same. So I think you must consider that because it's a significantly larger market than North America, particularly if you are focused on this one group of people.
Awesome. Yeah, no, it's great feedback and good things for me to think about, Jagdish. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Jagdish.
And
Sorry
feel
if I
free to
missed it.
reach out outside of this if there's any other feedback, because I'm in the thick of that process right now.
Yeah, no, I'd love it. I know a great website that might help, but yes, we'll definitely reach out to you
Sure.
to learn more. Thanks so much.
Jagdish, sorry if I missed it. Did you share a numeric score as well?
I think this definitely warrants a 4.
Awesome. Congratulations, Vinay. Great. And then so we'll wrap up with Eric. I just want to try and save time to get to Elena, and then I think Elena will be our last hot seat tonight, and we'll move to Gaurav's presentation. So Eric, would love to hear your thoughts.
Sure. Really strong opening, Vinay, right? The problem statement, very clear, an emotional element there. I do agree with Gaurav if you tie in your personal experience, which you mentioned later, but you could just add that at the beginning, get a little bit more of a punch there. A really strong problem statement. I didn't as much see the tie-in to how you, in a differentiated manner, solve that. So I understood later you're going to have vendors who can help solve that. I think you had a slide at the very end that said you'd have some sort of content like planning tools and things like that. But it wasn't exactly clear like how you're helping them, just that you will. So I think that connection would be good, and particularly again from a competitive standpoint, I liked you've clearly done some homework right on your competitors, which I liked. So the culturally inclusive piece seemed to be one area where you're competing, particularly against like the Knot and forget the other one. But I wasn't. What else is there? Is really on those two metrics, and I feel like you might need something else, right? Or do you have something else that you're planning to compete on? I think that was. I'm curious. I don't need to know, but like curious how you're pricing it versus competitors for vendors. What do vendors get out of it? I didn't see, other than access to your customers, is there something you can do for your vendors that makes it easier, right? It's cheaper for them or better experience. You facilitate the communication better than your competitors with customers. How is it? Why else would a vendor want to join your service from a vendor perspective?
Great. Thanks, Eric. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Eric. Great job, Vinay. All right, we'll wrap up with Elena.
Thank you. Let me share my screen now. Can you see my screen?
I see it. Looks good. I'll go on mute and I'll start the timer as soon as you begin.
I'm Elena, the founder of Hiringly, and I believe hiring should be fair and human-centered, not a game of keywords where great people get rejected before they're ever seen. But now let's look at the problem. The average time to fill a role is 45 days. Recruiters waste nearly 40% of that time screening unfit applicants, while a bad hire costs about $17,000. But we fix this. Hiringly's AI verify what's real, not what's written, using ontology. This is the secret sauce for intelligence at scale. Think of it like the map that connects all the pieces in hiring, cross-checking resumes, profiles, and skills to create one trusted story card, ranking the right candidates for the role. So instead of the messy keywords, ontology actually understands the meaning behind them. With Hiringly, companies cut hiring time in half, saving about $10,000 per role, and reduce bad hires by 30%, saving around $100,000 a year for every 100 hires. So beyond the numbers, recruiters gain time back, and candidates finally get a fair and human-centered experience. In terms of the market, we are targeting 570 customers and 5 million in annual revenue within 3 years. This is part of a 570 million serviceable segment across manufacturing, logistics, and healthcare. Also professional services within a 1.1 billion US mid-market. So we are planning to start mid-market because hiring pain is urgent, velocity is high, and sales cycles are shorter. And this creates a faster path to scale. In terms of competitor analysis, we map competitors on 2 axes. So skills depth and workflow breadth. Most cluster bottom left as point tools, and only a few reach the top right. So as you can see, Harley does this by combining the verified skills with end-to-end automation through multi-agents and ontology. In terms of the revenue, Harley starts with $8,000 employer subscription. So, and this is the half of the cost of legacy tools with more value. From there, we will expand accounts and unlock new streams like job posting promotions and premium candidate profiles. And this land and expand model drives sticky revenue, faster adoption, and long-term growth. And I'm raising 2 million for the next 24 months. That gets us from 10 to 10 pilots in year 1 to about 125 customer and 1 million ARR in year 2, and then scaling to 570 customers and 5 million ARR in year 3. Thank you for listening. Join us in making hiring faster, fair, and human-centered.
Thanks, Elena. You were a little over, but only by about 10 seconds, so no big deal. Great job. I like your slides, by the way. Very clear. Dominique, can we start with you for feedback?
Sure. I thought that was great, Elena. Just a couple of things to note. It was great to see all the numbers laid out in terms of the business model and also seeing the competitor analysis. It looks like you've done really thorough research on that. So it was great to see that. For me, it was a bit unclear how the solution impacts. There was a note on retention in the candidate experience and on the before and after, and I'm not sure how much that adds on that particular slide. Yeah, on the right there on the bottom, higher retention. So that was just something that stood out to me. But otherwise, great job. I would say a 4.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Lincoln, can we go to you next?
Hey, Elena. Yeah, I love the slides. Good, simple content to follow along. To me, I was finding it hard to bridge the claim to the capability, because, like, for example, you had the reduction, the metrics. You were doing comparisons. I think it was a few slides before, where, like, how did you measure the effectiveness of your product? Did you have enough customers versus, and where was the source of the other information that you put in, like, for 17,000 lost because of bad hires? So maybe, I missed that, but like kind of getting those numbers and kind of making that the connection. And same thing with that, the Magic Quadrant, kind of, that's a claim, and there were some big players in there, and you were at the very top of top right. So kind of trying to see that, and part of that is also, I could use a little bit more information about why your solution is unique, right? It's like, you kind of called out, oh yeah, there are like keywords and stuff like what current solutions are doing, but I didn't really understand what you're doing more to make this an outstanding solution first again. So I think it's a little bit more, I would like to see more depth there. Love the fact you had the market size and the competitive analysis. Would have liked to also see some more around go to market, like how would you work, how are you going to get this out? How do you scale? So I would give you a 2, but good presentation. I was able to follow along. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Very useful.
Thank you, Lincoln. Gaurav, can we wrap up with you?
Sure. So first of all, you started really strong. When I heard the sentence which had "I believe," I was like, yes, boom. That was great. However, there was a challenge in this flow of the story. When you mentioned the pain point, I just somehow anchored myself to the pain point of the candidate, not the recruiter. I don't know, it was just me or others as well. So my frame of mind was like, okay, you're solving a problem for the candidate because their resume is being presented to a machine, and then it's not being they are not being represented fairly. But then it switched and it talks about the pain point for recruiter. Your solution is for recruiter. So think about that, how you can fix that problem. That's first. Second, as Lincoln said, the numbers are great. It makes you look credible. But what is the source of those numbers on both the sides? One is you mentioned that this is the cost, and then my solution is going to increase and improve it by 50%. So for first data point, do you have research which you can quote? Just put the asterisks and mention that. For the second data point, which is like my solution is going to help you with this 50%, where is that coming from? Have you run any pilots which makes you say claim that benefit? And just extension of that, which is like those claims are really high claims, and the market you are in is really crowded. So it's very crucial for you to establish why your solution is better than the market. And especially when you go to the next slide, as Lincoln said, you're on the top most northeast corner of that quadrant. That's a tall claim. And I see Workday, LinkedIn, and Indeed in there. So if you're having this claim, you got to back it up, like why this is the case. Um, Besides that, just quick one, you mentioned mid-market positioning. Great if you have a good conviction about that. Usually think about whether scaling is going to be a challenge or is it feasible. I'll let you decide that. But overall, it was quite detailed. You're hitting right notes, and it was smooth. The slides were clean. You were confident. You talked about your idea very well. For that reason, I'm giving you a 4.
Thank you so much.
Very nice. Great job, Elena. Thanks, Gaurav. All right, fantastic. Well, thank you, everybody. Great pitches. Diego, what's up?
Just a quick question for our mentors.
Yeah.
I'm still having a little bit of a problem trying to understand the level into where we need to showcase the product. Because if we are going from an idea to we are doing an MVP to we are pitching to obtain like a validation. So what is the level when we convert from we are still working on our MVP to these are the numbers that we are obtaining from our MVP without affecting the end goal of the pitch? Not sure if my question is clear.
I think I can take a crack at this, Diego. It depends on, you want to be accurate, reflective of the stage where you are. And so you don't try to get ahead and don't, take away credits from where you are. So this is a process. You have an idea and you have some assumptions, you are validating those. And if you've done the work and you put it in front of customers, and because each of you is going to be at a different stage in this journey, and so you're not all going to have the same level of information, but you want to be able to get to certain milestones, and then if you are putting some numbers, then basically be able to have that back it with more details, because people will start asking those questions, right? So somebody might be ready to get funded, somebody might be in the early stage of validating. So I think it really depends on where you are, and you want to reflect that accurately. I'm sure the other mentors will have something to add to that as well.
Yeah, Diego, I'm not fully sure I understood the question, but I think really it depends on what you're trying to get out of it. So what is the pitch for? Is the pitch for, earlier tonight we heard mentors and advisors with Elena, we heard $2 million. Like, what are you pitching for? So depending, I totally understand, right? If you're very early, you may not need money yet, or you may not need XYZ yet. All right. So you would structure your pitch based on what you're asking for, and really the content of how I'd evaluate is going to be based on that too.
Perfect. And I think that summarized it very well, because there is, when you're earlier in the process, there is a lot of, we expect to be the leaders versus we are the leaders in XYZ area. So that's kind of how I was framing it into like, okay, we expect to get this much of the market. We expect to get at this much. But some of the questions that as mentors you were asking is like, you need to have those numbers validated. And therefore, in the early stages, it's still kind of difficult because of the pivot that any product is going to be facing. Like it might be the end user pivot or the paying customer pivot that you need to assess. But I got the answer. Thank you very much for the inputs.
I think the only other thing I would add then is like when you're early, like how are you going to go get some of those answers, right? How will you understand and validate your problem statement? Is it going to resonate in the market? How are you going to validate competitive positioning, willingness to pay? What is your plan for those? I don't expect you to have those at the early stage, but I do expect you to be thinking about those and saying like, this is what I'm going to do next. I'm here, and these are the next 3 things I'm going to go after.
So what I try to tell people is there are 4 simple questions. What problem are you solving? Who has that problem? Where will you find them? And are they willing to pay for a solution? Right. So if you run through these 4 simple questions, I think that answers most of what you're trying to come up with.
It's a really good guide. Wonderful. Thanks for all the input. Great question, Diego. Fantastic. Well, at this point, I think we can transition over to the presentation. So Gaurav, I'll hand things off to you. As always, I'll leave it up to you whether you want to take questions during the presentation or save them to the end. But mentors, just as questions come in, please do jump in, even if it is during the presentation, share your thoughts. We like the Q&A to be kind of an open conversation. Founders, even though I'm probably going to go off video because I'm a bit sick, I would really appreciate if as many of you as possible can turn your videos on just so Gaurav's not talking to a black wall. And Gaurav, I'll hand it off to you.
Thanks. Yes, please do stop me anytime, any place. I might not be able to see you because my screen, the PPT will be occupying the entire screen. But yeah, just call out my name. Give me a second. I'm gonna share my screen.
If you do the hand raise function as well, founders for questions, I'll try and keep an eye on that so I can jump in, Gaurav, and let you know if I see any as well.
Appreciate it. Yes, that will be perfect. Can you see my screen in the presentation mode?
Yeah, it looks good. It's just the slide.
Perfect. All right. Product development. So what does product development even entail? Like, so shall we talk about like the best practices of writing code? And then how we launch it? For me, the product development goes beyond that. And what does it entail? Actually, I start a little bit earlier from that stage. In my mind, these are the 5 phases of product development. What are these? 1, you identify pain points. 2, you find solution and prioritize. 3, you define a product roadmap. 4, then you develop your products. And then you launch the product, take it to the market. These earlier phases, these 3 phases, are so important for me as a product person that I'll actually be focusing mostly on these 3 phases. I'll briefly touch upon last 2, but for me, these are the most important one. And why these are important? Because for me as a product person, first of all, it's a lot more fun. There's a lot of ambiguity. You're trying to solve a problem, and that's where it's just kind of more fun for me. But more importantly, if you do a good job in these phases, you'll be saving a lot of heartburn for yourself. So I'm a good example. So right now I work for a company called Atlassian that has product called Jira, Confluence, so on and so forth. Before this, I was doing a startup, and there I followed the same path, and I realized that there was no good future for the idea um, in the idea that I was working on. I was working along with really established industry player. It was a venture studio. The folks had built and sold startups worth more than $1 billion. So very good place to be at. But the idea that we were working on, I didn't see a future. So I literally got in, did this whole thing, understood, decided to fail fast, and 6 months I was out. So I'll cut my losses significantly because I focus a lot in these three phases. So let's start one by one. I just shared some of the ideas in each of these phases. So let's start with the first one, which is identify pain points. So in this Accelerator S425, I've joined occasionally and then I listen to pitches. And one of the main things I usually, you might have found me saying that your pitch is like a movie story pitch. There are characters, there are some character arcs, there are problems that they are facing, and then those problems get solved, and then there is a happy ending, right? It's just like that. This idea that you are working on, you need to establish your character. That's the very first thing you will see in a movie. And that's what I mean by know your personas. So you ask those typical W word questions. Who are they? Um, Jagdish just mentioned those 4 questions, right? Very much along those lines. Who are they? Where are they found? Will they pay you? Why would they pay you? What do they want? All those kind of things. And then there is a concept of job to be done. So this is a concept that introduced by a Harvard professor called Clay Christensen. I believe he was working on a consulting case with McDonald's. So let's take a little bit of detour. I really want you to know the value of this concept, job to be done. And that's where I'll just go to I'll share this brief history of this concept of job to be done. What happened was that this professor, they were hired by McDonald's and said, hey, the concept of milkshake, why are customers buying our milkshake from our breakfast McDonald's, and usually people go there for their breakfast, but people are coming out with milkshakes. What's the reason? And that's where the professor and their team sat down in the parking place and they talked to these customers and then asked this question: why are you buying milkshake as your breakfast? After talking to all of them, they realized the common theme was all these people had a long drive ahead of them. And they had two problems to solve for. One is the boredom, and second is the hunger. And a thick milkshake was doing that job. It was easy to have, it was long lasting, and it was giving them lots of calories. Okay. So the job to be done for this milkshake was addressing the boredom and the hunger at the same time. If you think about other breakfast items, not easy to eat while you're driving without dirtying your hand, dropping things here and there. So that's why the milkshake and the job to be done was, as I mentioned. Now, in your context, knowing your personas, coming back to the persona piece, which is sometimes, especially in the B2B world, your buyer is different than customer. Like we sell B2, we sell enterprise software, we sell Jira. The buyer is the company's CTO, for example. The user is a developer. So your product needs to answer the pain point of both. It should increase the productivity of the developer, but also it should give some benefit to that CTO. Maybe it's a cost saving for them. So if that's the case, think about your persona carefully. Similarly, if there are other stakeholders in your use case, let's take an example, healthcare industry. If your idea is in that space, it's not just the end user and which is the patient, which is a patient, for example. There are many other stakeholders. You need to have buy-in from the doctors. You need to have buy-in from the hospital. You need to consider the regulatory bodies which who might have created some regulations which could impact your product. You might need to consider the insurance companies and their policies. So think about all the possible personas in your context. So that's the concept of job to be done, which is going in. This is just a simple illustration. You're looking at the workflow of your persona, what problem they are facing, and how you can solve that problem. Now, while it's still on the topic of pain point, ask a question to yourself, is this pain point really worth solving? Now, I don't mean to put anybody down, but like this was an actual business idea from a good friend of mine. He's a good product thinker, but it's long back. And the idea is simple. Once the paper towel is out, the LED glows. Okay. Now, on that Kickstarter page, there was a comment that stuck with me, which was, hey, looks like this is a solution which is begging for a problem. And yeah, so he spent good amount of time on it, did not work. He closed it, good experience, good learning experience. But ask yourself this question, hey, is this a pain point which is really worth solving for? Is this a vitamin or is it a painkiller? Moving on to the second phase, which is finding solutions and prioritizing. So first piece is, okay, so I know there is a problem. I know the persona, I know their workflow. I know what their pain point is. Now, how do I solve for this? There could be different frameworks. One of the framework is this, which is look at the customer demand, look at the competitor supply, and that gives you an idea about opportunity. So, for example, in today's session, there was one pitch for the pets. It was told that it was mentioned that there was nobody in the market. So that means there is from the supply side, the opportunity is high. Now, it could also mean that you might want to double click on that. Why the supply side is so low? Are there any of the challenges? It could be that nobody has thought about solving that problem. Like Uber is a good example. Airbnb is a good example. Nobody had thought of those ideas before. So there was no Uber, no Airbnb before that. So it's just a framework to help you look at all the solutions and prioritize. One more advice here, the pitfall of ROI method of prioritization, something that some of us tend to do. Like there are 8 different ideas, and then we want to prioritize. And if we use this formula, what would end up happening is, what is this formula? Formula is like you created the value and minus cost of your time or cost of your investment, whatever way. But the problem is this: your cost of your time is in the denominator, and which means it might end up giving you those ideas which are easy, quick wins, but the corresponding value might also be proportionate. You are working in a space we are trying to replace your competitor. And as like Google has this philosophy that they don't pick up any idea unless it is 10x better than the competitor. So you don't have to go that far, but still, you want a strong reason for your potential customer to choose you as a service provider, as a solution provider, as a product provider. And that has some friction from moving from one provider to another, has always has friction. So you need to have something really, really tempting value creation. And that's where you need a really strong motivator. And if you use the ROI method, you might end up creating like a small benefits, many of them, but they together may not create that much value that the customers then feel tempted to switch the provider and use your product. Now, how do you go about prioritizing a solution? And just it's a tactical advice. There is a book from Google Venture, The Design Sprint, which lays out a very good approach, and it has been used for lots of companies, lots of startups, folks. So I just wanted to share that idea with you. So it's basically a 5-day sprint. Um, it follows pretty much the same framework that I have talked about. Monday they come together, they think about a map, they think about their persona, they think about the workflow they follow, and then based on that they prioritize which problem to solve. Then Tuesday they come together, they think about multiple ways to solve that prioritized problem. Okay, and then Wednesday they come together and talk about, okay, these are different solutions, we can pick one element from this solution, second element from this solution, and this is how my solution would look like. So now we have identified problem, we have identified solution. Thursday comes, let's build a prototype. With the in when it was read, the book was written, they were suggesting, just do a simple PPT, um, and build a prototype. Nowadays, there are so many other ways to build your prototypes. I think Replit has some awesome functionalities. You could use that. And Friday, you do the actual customer interviews. You test those ideas, how your problems and solution statements are landing with actual customers. And this is where kind of you don't have to decide, let the customer speak for themselves. You go there with some hypothesis, some ideas, and you validate those hypotheses. And the number of customers interviews you need to do is 5. That's their recommendation. They say that beyond 5 is the law of diminishing marginal returns. So if you are talking to the right customer set, then after 5, you would have figured out what is working, what is not working. So this is such an easy and inexpensive way of trying out your ideas. See, you hardly spend any money, any time, and then you have validated that whether his product will work or not. No coding required, nothing. So that's that. Now, next phase, building the product roadmap. Whatever you have done so far, all your learnings here come together. And this is where you build a 3-stage product roadmap. What does 3-stage means? Essentially, you can say that, hey, in stage 1, let's stick with the example of that breakfast, milkshake for breakfast idea. Stage 1, I'm gonna do the milkshake for breakfast. Stage 2, I will expand into the adjacent category. I'll probably do some full lunch for these customers who can take it to their office place and have it. And stage 3 could be something else. Okay, so those are, and the goal could be that stage 1, I'm gonna spend 1.5 years. Stage 2, I'm gonna spend another 1 year, and stage 3, I'll jump in the third year onwards, kind of thing. And what are these rows? So goal is essentially, hey, my goal is to help customers solve the problem of boredom. And what does functionality mean? Okay, these are your product feature. The product feature are, hey, I need a thick milkshake so that, it lasts long. I need a cup that can fit into the cup holder. I need enough calories in the milkshake so that the customer doesn't feel hungry until lunch. So these are functionalities. The precondition. What is precondition? Basically, these need to be true in order for you to succeed. In case of the breakfast milkshake, this location should be easily accessible for folks in their cars. So it could be either a drive-through or it must have a good parking lot, precondition. And what is exit criteria? Essentially, you can move from stage 1 to stage 2. These criteria has to be true, then only I can go to the stage 2. So for example, it could be some number. I need to have at least 50,000 customers for this milkshake before I venture into the adjacent category. Now we are in the build stage. As I mentioned, I'm going to quickly zip through some ideas, some thoughts here. So when you're doing this initial product validation phase work, treat all the work that you are doing as a throwaway work. If your code or whatever, mostly I'm focusing on the software here. So if your code is still has lived beyond a certain age, say a couple of years, means you have failed. You have failed because you have thought so much making something which actually lasted for 2 years. Your goal is to move as fast as possible in the early phase, throw it out there. Basically, you're throwing stuff on the wall and see what sticks. So yeah, you don't need to be really thorough with your approach. Don't worry about the scalability. Don't worry about the data residency when you're literally on your version 0.1. Focus on the core features, avoid feature creep. Reiterating what I said earlier, which is if you have 10 different features and those are all incremental benefits, but not needle mover, it's not going to help. I think that today's session is all about like that one idea, one metric that really is important, one killer feature. It's essentially the same, which is focus on what really matters and then double down on that. And if you have a team, continue to have this constant communication, keep sharing your vision, what you're working towards, why you're working towards that. And if you, the previous framework that I shared, the three-stage phase, three-stage process, share that kind of thinking with them so that they are there along with you. All of you should be rowing in the same direction. Launch phase, a couple of more thoughts on the launch phase. Talk about benefits, not feature. It's so often I see that in the pitches we end up talking about the features. Features don't matter. Benefits matter. Customers don't buy features. Customer buy benefits. Job to be done. Remember that phrase. This is something that you guys have one of the session on this, and it came up in that session as well. So I'm gonna just reiterate that you must have a revenue model in mind, because ultimately it's you want to make money, you want to have a scalable business, profitable business. But at this stage, assuming that you're in the early stage of your startup, getting paid is not important. Getting paid is not important. You are looking for those lighthouse customers who give you feedback. Their time is how you are getting paid. Their feedback is how you are getting paid. And that is what the most important thing you're looking for at this point in time. And that's where, like, if they're not paying you, you might wonder, okay, yeah, they are using the product. Then, I mean, because they're not paying, how do I understand whether they really value the product or not. I think you will get some sense, once you talk to them, if they are really involved. If they are complaining a lot, awesome. That's what you're looking for. That's a good sign of a good lighthouse customer. I really love those customers who complain. If somebody they are not saying much, that's a good feedback. Maybe it's time for pivot. So you ask this question, hey, if I take away this product from you, how would you feel? That's where kind of you get those idea that, okay, they are not paying. And if they feel a little bit jittery, if they feel that, no, I think your product has become part of my workflow. And if you take it away from me, I'm going to struggle. I'm going to really miss. That's a great validation for your product. Growth hacking. There's tons of material on this, but essentially, as you guys are discussing, select a North Star metric, do a lot of experimentation. Now, experimentation across different channels, meaning you are marketing your idea on Instagram or your LinkedIn, or you are doing it some other way, whatever your product is. You try which channel is giving you most bang for the buck, double down on that, forget about everything else. Same with the product. There will be one feature which is being used by 80% of the customers, and the 9 features are used by only like single digit percent customers. It is telling you something. Double down on that particular pain point that one feature is solving. Similarly, customer touch point. So yeah, that's basically all growth hacking is all about. Experiment. And initially I mentioned that these are 5 phases. These are not 5 phases. It's actually a cycle. Once you complete the cycle, it just goes on and on. You just come up with the next problem to solve, obviously within the periphery of what initially you're working on, but you just keep doing over and over. So that's it. Any questions?
Thanks, Gaurav. That was fantastic. Founders, any questions? Hands up, or feel free to just jump in. And mentors, again, please do jump in to share your thoughts as well. Mentors, if you have questions you would like answered or you think the founders should answer, feel free to throw those in the mix too. The idea here is really to get a discussion going.
I just want to add here to what Gaurav was saying. If you take you build something, you assume that it's throwaway, and you pivot as often as you need until you find the elusive product market fit. So just I want to share a use case with you. I was working with a startup in the UK as a coach and then a mentor, and also became a small tiny little investor. And these guys, when they started, they were building for X, solving X problem, and then 3 months later they decided they don't want to solve X anymore, they want to solve Y. So they basically threw away everything they built, rebuilt again. And what I noticed was that they were not pivoting in isolation. They were actively, very proactively talking to customers all the time and getting feedback on in their sales operations, because they wanted to build a sales enablement tool. So in the sales operations, they pivoted several times. And then finally, recently, about 6 months ago, they niched down into one vertical and have now become a vertical solution. I mean, they're far from being a huge, glorious success, that startup life. But this was one of the cases where I found where they were pivoting over and over again until they got to a point where they think they've figured out the actual problem that they're solving and for the specific industry that they're solving for. So I would add to what Gaurav said and encourage you to walk away from yesterday's idea if you have the conviction that customers have a different problem than you originally thought.
This That's good advice, Jagdish, and thank you, Gaurav, for sharing all that. One thing I just echo and highlight that Gaurav presented, he mentioned the phrase vitamin versus painkiller, and that you want to be what? You want to be producing the painkiller. It's not that vitamins are bad or people don't want vitamins. I buy vitamins, but people need painkillers. They will pay a lot for painkillers. It solves a huge problem versus vitamin, a bit smaller ones. So even just echoing what Jagdish said, like sometimes it might be, you might discover as you test that, oh, maybe what this feature was, or maybe the whole product was more of a vitamin. Like it's a good thing, there's a use for it, but customers might only need it this much versus something else or some other element of your product or what you're offering could be the painkiller. So again, looking for customer feedback early and understanding what's really resonating with the customers. What are they loving? What do they have to have? That's going to be the painkiller, and that's the thing either you may want to go focus your product on or go after first, especially for startups, but it's the same for most companies, right? We have so many ideas on what to build, but prioritizing the biggest bang for the buck, the painkiller stuff first is usually the right approach.
Jumping on what you just said, Eric, yeah, you do want to identify the key pain points. You're not going to be able to solve all of your customers' problems. They're, inundated with things and they have to deal with, but really you're trying to solve the biggest ones. What are they willing to pay for? And a way to kind of get at that, just briefly, is trying to understand, what are the challenges that your company's facing right now? What are the workarounds? Trying to understand what are the resources? What are the ways in which they're solving that right now? What are there any alternatives that maybe you're not aware of? Any potential competitors? So there's some questions that you can ask to get at how big those pain points are for them.
Thanks, all. Great input. We've got some questions. Yosu, it looks like you're up first.
Hey, so I have actually like a couple questions if I'm allowed to do that. But the first one is so with my startup idea, I think thanks to the whole program and everything, it kind of pushed me to think over and over again, especially after customer interviews, to pivot. So this is my actual second time or third time that I pivot. I wouldn't say like pivot entirely, but as a kind of a micro pivot. The idea is essentially the same, but it had kind of evolved to this point. But one thing that I want to kind of make sure or like confirm is when do we know when a pivot is a correct pivot versus we're just hearing from customers like what they want. I'm kind of asking like what is the balance here of like standing your ground as like what the vision of the product actually is versus kind of catering to like the customers wants basically. So that's one question, and I think I can ask other ones if if time allows.
I'll start with one answer to that. I think sometimes it's a signal to noise ratio kind of thing. And what I mean by that is how many customers are asking for that, because there will always be the loud customers, maybe the difficult customers that are screaming loud and like, you got to do this. If only you did this, I would buy your product or I would pay, which maybe they will, maybe they won't. But how many are doing that? What signals are you getting to that? Is not just one or two customers, but that is a real industry or target market pain point. One thing I would just offer along those lines, because that's a good question to go answer. Like, how many customers are having this problem or want this feature, and then what are they willing to pay for it? Is always the second question, and how much. But an interesting kind of thing that you can do with AI these days, which was really it was hard to do before, is now rather than you can go talk to customers, but you can also go see what are potential customers saying out on the internet, such as searching a particular, whether it's hobbyist forums. Reddit is awesome, right, for these kind of things, right? And whether you're looking sometimes at competitors' products, what are they complaining about? What do they love about that? And just being able to literally take that data, throw it into an LLM, and be able to just parse that with questions, like, is really powerful way that didn't really exist years ago
It's pretty cool.
to get some early, understanding of potential customer feedback.
Yeah, I'll definitely echo that, and I'll use this framework where you want the breadth and the depth in your customer research. Allow me to explain.
Okay.
The breadth part is what Eric just mentioned. Talk to as many customers as possible. Once you talk to several of them, you start seeing a theme that, okay, this is a problem which is across one customer, more than few customers, and this looks like an interesting problem. Okay, this is a problem worth solving for. Now, what do I mean by depth? Try to understand why is it a problem. And that's where, like, I have come across in situation where some customers were really loud that, hey, solve this problem. But when you ask the why question 5 times, you will realize it's not a problem you want to solve, for whatever reason. And that's why you want to understand the intent behind their complaint, intent behind their need. So yeah, talk to as many customers as possible, look for themes, understand why it is a problem.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I didn't think about like the whole like Reddit research also. That's a one way to like kind of hack the whole process as well. So yeah, that's great. Am I so I want
just
to
wanna, before you ask your next question, just want to add that this example that I gave you before about this UK startup that pivoted multiple times. So in one of their pivots, I actually asked them, so what has led you to this conclusion that you no longer want to do X and you want to do Y? What led you to that conclusion? And when they started telling me the details of how they actually arrived at that decision, I realized that they had both the breadth and the depth that you've heard of. They said our goal was to talk to 100 customers. Now that's not easy to do, right? So these guys actually made appointments or phone calls and spoke to 100 prospective customers. They said that's our magic number. We want to talk to 100 customers, collect all the data, look through all the feedback that we've been given, and then see if we can spot that trend. And we spotted that trend. So I think the clear indicator is just the sheer quantity, the sheer number of people. And that is the hardest thing to do.
Yeah.
And it needs to be done before you can confidently pivot away from what you're doing.
Another quick thing to add is understanding the urgency behind any of the pain points. So, a question that you could ask, for example, is, if this concept or this product were available today, would you or your team use it? And if you hear hesitation, I've been on customer calls where they just jump on it right away. Like they say, I could use this yesterday. And then I've heard on the other side of that some hesitation and not sure. Then, that may be a signal that this is less important than what they're signaling right now.
Awesome. Thank you. Just a very quick segue onto the second question, which is for applications or services that are of a freemium service, where the pain point might be the thing that gathers people, but not necessarily what makes them to pay for something. Because like when they pay for something is something that some extra feature, let's say, that that compels them to pay. So when it comes to understanding what the what the product should be, or how do we do these customer interviews, where where should the focus be actually be? Is that in the gathering, so that they at least they get to use the app, or or service, or should we be focusing more on the idea of, okay, like what is the thing that they were going to be eventually be paying for? So I'm having a hard time with this like balance of the 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 paid and then not the free features. Yeah, so that's my question.
So let me take a crack at it. It's probably not a complete answer to your question, but my 2 cents is that you've got to have a path to revenue clearly identified, whether you ask customers to pay on day one or not. Because at the end of the day, assuming that you're building an app, building a piece of software, building a solution, building a product to turn it into a business and commercialize it and turn it into a profitable venture, I think you've got to think of how you monetize on day one. Whether you monetize or not, it could be free initially, it could be get people to try it out, but you got to have some pathway. I know a lot of successful products today never had a shred of monetization intent initially, and then turned into these gigantic successes. And my response to that is accidents do happen. Okay, and timing and luck. And there's so many other factors, but I think for small startups with limited resources and limited time, if you're thinking of making money eventually, you got to think of it on day zero, just so that you can bake it into your thinking first and then bake it into the product as it develops at some point in whatever shape or form. So I think that's paramount, because it'll help you guide your thinking on, how to, what pieces can be free, what can be paid, what will people pay for. You give them a bunch of features. Do you rate limit? 3 projects are free, and then you create the fourth one. You're in a paid. I mean, all of those sort of layering of value and that value exchange for revenue, you need to start thinking of very, very early on.
Thank you.
I think Vasant next.
Yeah, this is a question of actually the product feature design, in the sense like understand the product feature design specifically with respect to, I had problem with the user experience design, where for that feature typically like the most of the time, like if you start with, let's say, assuming like you have 100 or 1,000 devices in it instead of one device, so every iteration like user experience design can puts them off. So is there any guidelines in terms of basically how do we, it's a predominantly technical products, and since you're adding one employee or one user, and then designing the user experience versus like think of 1,000 users and then kind of so those kind of models that
Uh, I'm not sure exactly the entire context, so maybe once I have it, maybe I'll might be able to speak to it more deeply. But in general, as a product person, I do refer to industry standards for designs. Usually, any problem that we come across in the software development, somebody would have come across. And so usually these patterns are built, and if you do some research, you might come across those research. So that's what I would do. I'll find some design patterns, and maybe that will give some ideas. Do some whiteboarding session with your colleagues and maybe some of your customers. Bring all these ideas, the different design patterns, and once you start brainstorming with them, do a workshop, and then that workshop probably might help you solve for that. If I understood your question correctly,
yeah
that's what I would.
yeah predominantly yeah the specific reason, like if you normally typically analysts are programming and come back to the wireframe, and then they keep that one thought process, one user or one device to add, and then kind of feature design is fine. And then the moment you put them, like you think about 1,000 devices, then the perspective of like managing the 1,000 devices, adding one device and modifying them, and then so the user experience changes if you think about the bulk. So it's to simplify the user experience. So it's always like the brainstorming about not about the feature, it's about the user experience. And then if I get the design thinking person, and then under making them understand the technology product, and then on top of that, like think about the so that's a kind of best practices.
It's an inexpensive way to solve for this. I understand, in the startup world, you would not have a full-time design researcher here, but maybe go to some. There are marketplaces where you can hire people just for on like a project basis. Like literally, they can spend like 10 hours, and you can pay them for that. And so having them look into this might be kind of an easier way to go about it. And what something you mentioned, that it sounded like explaining the technical complexity, it might be difficult for you to explain it to this new person. It's actually good if you get fresh pair of eyes and let them think about this problem, because you have been knee deep into this. It's good for somebody else to look at into this and then solve. Maybe that might be a better way, because ultimately your customers will also bring their own fresh pair of eyes.
Sorry, Aziz, go ahead.
Hi, Gaurav. Thank you so much. One question I had was the idea was around that we spoke to some customers, I guess, at least about 5 of them, and we sort of had an idea about what the pain point is, but we've sort of like been trying to work on that pain point, but that doesn't seem to be the problem. So sort of like, I guess what I mean by it doesn't seem to be the problem is we're not getting adoption, but it's sort of like trying to work on what that problem is. Sort of, when do you sort of qualify something as a real pain point, even if people have talked about it? And sort of, should we then go ahead and sort of reevaluate and do another like customer survey now? Because sort of like from today's call, I got the idea of maybe just go out and do like another 100 interviews and sort of see like, does maybe our first pain point was not a real pain point. Is there doing too much of pain point, of like figuring it out, of doing too much of it? It's like doing too little of it. And what would be like your suggestion on what we've done so far and sort of things like that? I don't know if that question makes sense, but I hope it does.
I think the answer, you would know the answer once you start talking to customers and you reach to a point where you start hearing the same thing over and over again. That's your time of like, aha, everybody seems to be saying the same thing. This is the problem that I need to solve. And until that happens, you keep going. I don't know if there can be a magical number. So I did mention in that design sprint book, they talk about like 5 customers, but that's very specific when you know what customer segment you're talking about. Okay, but in the startup world, that's not true. Your persona might differ, and you are open to that, as we were talking earlier, like you are open to pivoting from, say, mid market to more big enterprises. There are so many dimensions across which your customer base could change, or your problem statement could change even for a single customer. So that's why the number 5 does not hold true in your case. So yeah, the suggestion is keep talking until you come to a point that, hey, this, you're done that breadth and depth analysis. You're like, hey, I'll talk to so many customers, most of them seem to be saying the same thing, and the reason they are saying the same thing is because this is their workflow, and this is where they tend to waste your time, productivity, money, whatever that is.
I'll add that you want to make sure to be consistent across conversations to make sure that you're tracking the right signals, making sure that you have your list of assumptions and you're bringing that, and you can do as simple as a checklist, right, for all of the assumptions that you have, and keeping your questions, like I said, consistent. You may need to update them as you have more conversations, but at least you can have your notes and have the assumptions and the associated questions all there laid out. And that way you'll be able to make better decisions because you'll have that consistency across all of those conversations.
And just to add to that, I think it's possible to ask questions that give you the answer that you're looking for. So try to be as neutral as you can and as open as you can to get real answers and not answers that you're hoping to get, because then the tendency could be to lean too much into asking those type of questions, right? So in other words, don't put words in the customer's mouth, because then the likelihood of you getting false signals is pretty high, right? Because if you ask somebody, hey, would you like some extra money and can I give you $100? The answer is always going to be yes.
Great point. One thing I always like to add here too is that it's always tempting to think of customer discovery as a discrete phase at the beginning of the process, and then you never have to deal with it again. But I think strong companies make sure that they retain a good line of communication with their customers, to inform product launches, product design, and even post-launch. And one thing I've always been shocked in larger company corporate work is the degree to which, post-purchase customer support and customer success insights can be divorced from sales and marketing, and often really divorced from product development, to the point where product managers in a large company will be saying, hey, these are our hero features, this is how we're going to position the product, this is what we're prioritizing. And you can talk to anybody in, post-sales support or even sales, and they'll say, no, that's not what people care about. That's not what's getting them to buy. So just making sure that you have those kinds of, threads of communication, is really, really important.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.
Great question, Aziz. We still have about 15 minutes. Any other questions for our mentors tonight? All right.
Oh,
Well,
I can Levi,
oh,
you
sorry,
want me to
Carrie,
ask
go
my
ahead.
question?
Go for it. Go for it.
I think everybody but Eric's heard all the mentors, but Eric's heard my question. Eric, what's the most inspirational book you've ever read?
Oh, good question. Probably Just Mercy by Brian Stevens. I think that's the author, but it's called Just Mercy. He was a lawyer who's helped people on death row.
Oh, wow.
Just incredible story. They ended up making it into a movie. But the book is really good about a person who put years and years of his life for really, just helping people one by one, really in different part of the country, and just shed a lot of light on things and made me think about a lot of things. So that was an inspirational book, I guess.
Cool. Thank
Well, that is something. I was just reading the description. Wow. Powerful. But Carrie, I feel like I have to point out, in the interest of what Dominique was saying about consistency in your questions, you have asked also for the most impactful book.
I know. I went. I
So
know.
maybe you might have to hold off on publishing your findings. All right, wonderful. Mentors, thank you so much. This has been a great session. Founders, thank you so much. Thanks for the great pitches tonight. Mentors, please feel free to drop off. I just have a couple of announcements for our founders, but I don't want to take up any more of your evening. But thank you so much. Founders, just for anyone who missed it, please do note that the library services session is tomorrow for traditional business, but it's not exclusive to traditional business. If you don't know already, the Seattle and King County Public Library System has literally one of the best in the nation when it comes to business support services. Incredible access free to data sets with guides and folks who are available to help you, as well as free access to legal support, accounting support. It's really phenomenal. I will probably not be able to attend, but Yoshiko will be running the workshop. It's going to be with Jay Lyman, who runs that team. Highly recommend. It's frequently one of our top reviewed sessions of the program, actually. So if you're able to make it, I definitely recommend joining, even if you're not traditional business. The other thing that I want to share, I posted this in the Slack as well, but just so you know, next week is the pitch progress review. So that's going to be the same format as the mentor idea review, all pitching, no mentor presentation. Per FI rules, this is not my requirement, it's theirs. All founders have to attend and pitch to stay with the cohort. If you can't make it, please let me know as soon as you possibly can so we can schedule time for a makeup pitch before the next session. And also please note, very important, starting with next week's session, we're going to be moving to 5-minute pitches. So it's going to be 5 minutes plus slides, not 3 minutes. We'll be sticking with that format for the remainder of the session. Since you're here, I'll let you know more details to come because it's not locked down yet. But it's looking like graduation is going to be at the Bothell City Hall on December 8th. That's a Monday, 4 to 6 p.m. Not mandatory to join, but obviously, you know, we love it when you do. We'll be inviting mentors as well. It's in person. It is open to everyone. So you want to bring friends, family, anyone who's interested in the program, the more the merrier. Bring them along. I think those are my updates. The other thing I just want to share in case you didn't notice, we do have 2 weeks off in November, alternating weeks. I forget the specific dates, but we're taking off. I think it's the second week of November for I'm sorry, Brianna, did I say 6 to 8 on December 8th? Yes, 4 to 6. 4 to 6 on December 8th is the graduation. In November, I think it's the second week and the fourth week, so it's for Veterans Day and Thanksgiving Day, so we will be having off for those 2 weeks, so great opportunity to catch up on sprints if you need to. Yeah, I think that's my spiel. Reach out if you need anything. I will be traveling to San Francisco for the second half of this week, so if I'm a little delayed getting back to you, apologies in advance. But Yoshiko will be around as well. All right.